have this tremendous look having someone who's very close with my family as well. Mendy Weinberger is my Rav, my father's Rav. So I'm very close to do things. It's a night to remember all in business, and so many titles come up after the fellow speak. For sure, like more titles always ask after for a number of call. Any questions of like Mishpat and Michael and Rabbi can say.
Okay. Tough competition over here. Wait. Okay, so I appeared a few questions for me, and anyone who has any other questions relevant to this topic or any other topic, feel free to ask in. So he gave me 4 questions. We'll start with the last one and work our way up. Before I start with those questions, give a brief akdama on some misconceptions that people have in regard to Choshen Mishpat. This past summer I was in a bungalow colony, and I don't know if you're familiar, there was in Woodridge, and there's one big supermarket in town over there, and right next door there someone else opened up a second supermarket. I'm sitting in shul that week, and there's a big debate. Some people say, this person opened up right next to the other person. How can he do that? He's taking away his business. The guy's there for so many years. They're saying, it's a free country. I'm allowed to open up. And they're going back and forth. And I'm sitting there on the side and saying, like, what are these people thinking? They know the halacha. There's a Choshen Mishpat to this. There's a merdike Chazanish in Emunah B'Tachan. Chazanish in Emunah B'Tachan says like this. In Peir Gimel, he says, Chayvis HaMusriyas. You want to know what's right and wrong? They are attached to Piskei Halacha. V'halacha hu mechras as a iser v'samuta shel teres hamusa. Teres hamusa in right and wrong is not our own objective opinion. If someone gets into a car accident, he turned, he didn't turn, who was right, who was wrong. You can't look at your own perception of what you think is right and wrong and decide what's right and wrong. Right and wrong is nikva, there's a Shulchan Aruch, the same way as a halacha and a Shabbos, all types of Choshen Mishpat, Archaim, Yerdea. It's the same thing. There is almost no transaction that person can do that is not governed by halacha. And the Chazanish gives an example very similar to the example we mentioned. He says there was a town, a small town, and there was a malamed there. He's there all the years, and some young whippersnapper moves into town, and he's opening up a cheder there also. And there was a tremendous vikuach. Some people said, how can you come and open up? This Rabbi was here, you're actually his own Talmud, and now you're coming and taking away all his Talmidim. As the Chazanish says, what happens is the new show comes to town, everyone goes running to. So what does everyone think? Who's right, who's wrong? Anyone want to? Zok the Chazanish. Huh? What?
Did he take away business or not?
Take a business. He's not taking away business. He's coming to take away the business. So Charles, how much?
Business is business.
Business is business. And what does that mean? You know how to do whatever you want. Business is business. When it comes to business, some people have a big thing. And when it comes to business is business, pleasure is pleasure. When it comes to my tzedakah, I don't mix in. Business, I got to make money. That's the main thing. Everything else we'll worry about later. Zok the Chazanish. That this is not a shaila of that people could say their emotions are what's right and wrong. So there's a halacha. The halacha is that you're allowed to compete with someone else. There is one exception, there's 2 exceptions actually, in that when you're not allowed to compete. Anyone here has a business that anyone else took under? Go to Balcham over here, no business on the side. I recently got it, 2 weeks ago, I got a shayla from the Yeshiva, the guy was selling donuts, and another guy thought, probably was in a fight with him, that's my guess, but he decided, Hatorah, the Balcham have to pay so much for the donuts, I'm ordering the same donuts, cost price, I'm selling it to them. So the other guy obviously has no more business. Is he doing the right thing or not? The tzaddik, mamash. I told him he should find other mitzvahs to do. That was the psak that I told him. But about kaponim, you're allowed to take away someone's business. There's 2 places where in Allah you're not allowed to take away someone's business. One is called pasuk yusel legamri, where you knock him out completely. There it's a machloikus. I'm not saying it's pashat or Moshe. Some seifa. Others say that you're not allowed to compete with someone if you reach to the point where that person is going to have to close up shop. And the other place is when there's someone from out of town. So if someone bar mosa achriti, someone from out of town moves into this town, you're not allowed to do it. So the case of the Chazanish was a bar mosa achriti. The guy came he didn't live there, he came to move to town now. So it's a shayla, but etzim is not. Like the Chazanish, but there's a halacha that l'tzorich Talmud Torah, they made an exception that bar mosa is allowed to do it. Zok the Chazanish. The case of it, they went and mastered and they did everything. So who's right and who's wrong? So if we paskin, then Mikri Dardaki, when it comes to Talmud Torah, we make an exception. Then whoever fought on that person's, on the Rebbe who moved into town side, anything that he did was right. If that wouldn't be the halacha, if the halacha would have been that it would not have been a case of Talmud Torah, then everything they did were Rishayim. So here we have people get emotional, you could take away, you can't take away business, and sometimes you have to look at it within the light of halacha. As the Chazon Ish says that in this case, Mamash, they could have been over the biggest Isurim or the biggest Tzaddikim based on this halacha, which probably no one in the town knew B'chlal. That's what Chazon Ish says, and the ends off also, he says that there's an Iker Gadol, Shekol Mikra, Shenifkash, Imre'eu, Tzarech Lishka B'pelos halacha. A person shouldn't jump to conclusions on his own. A person has to realize that the halacha is nikva, and that's what is right and wrong. And in this case, with the store that opened up, I told the people, it's very nice. Everyone has an opinion over here. Anyone see the books of this town? They know if he's going to knock him out completely or not. We had many Dinei Torah where people wanted to knock out. There's restaurants. One in a small town in Malik, it's not Negea. There's a million restaurants. For some reason, there seems to be more than enough business for everyone. But in other smaller towns, the person wants to open up a new thing and he wants to take it away. So the first thing we ask them is show us your books. See how much you're making, how much it is. Are you knocking him out? Not knocking him out. But that's the point of it. The point is, first point I want to make a Hakdama to Chaysham Mishpat is that a person shouldn't jump to run to conclusions. The person has to realize that the halachas governing each and every transaction that a person does, and shouldn't get emotional, look at it with the palace of Allah. Okay, so one of the questions that was submitted was a photographer approached someone with a price of $600. The person had already committed to someone else for $800, and he wanted to know if he's allowed to sort of back out and go to the person for the $600. So this shaila has two parts to the halacha and two halachas which we have to introduce, and we'll go through each person's position whether they're allowed to back out.
Isn't there a down payment?
Wait a second.
Yeah, isn't down payment. So if you gave a down payment, so then there'll be a different shaila. Let's go with that. Let's go with there's no down payment, and they wrote in the question, there's no down payment, there's no cancellation fee.
No contract.
No contract. So what's the halacha? You're allowed to back out. Get it cheap at $200. Business is business, right? So two halachas, that one shiloh on the photographer is trying to get the business, and one for the person himself. The first shiloh is he approached someone, and he told someone, I'm willing to do the job for $600. He didn't know yet that there was someone else who wanted the job, but there was someone else who already the person had verbally committed to. So there's a sugya in Kedushin called Oni Mahapa V'Charora. There's an Oni who's trying to run after a charora, piece of cake, cookie, whatever it may be, and someone else comes, swoops in and takes it. You have to understand Chayshim Mishpat, you have to translate it into more partial things. Let's say you're in Manhattan, you're about to take the parking space, someone swoops in and takes your parking space instead of a cookie, so something that we could the guy's losing money. So there's a halacha, Oni Mahapa Charora. If someone's going and he is getting a charora, or bo'ach of a notlo is nikra rasha. That's not the business is business, but no one wants to be a rasha. And the Ranach explains that over here rasha means that he's over an issa de rabbanon. So there's a concept called Oni Mahapa Charora. That if someone has a verbal commitment with someone else, and someone else wants to interfere and undo that commitment in order to get the business for himself, it's a nikra rasha. It's the asr midarabbanon. So what? So there's a machlokes Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. If the person is if by Osher va'ani, if there's the same halacha, when there's a mitzia, if there's something which you can't get anyplace else, by a mitzia there's maybe an exception to this halacha. There are more is mekel, or Moshe says that here Shemaim should be machmer, but here the Shach brings a Ramban that when everything business, we don't look at this as a mitzia. It's true, you're looking for business, it's the regular course of business that's not called a mitzia. So the person who's trying to get this job for $600, trying to get the person to give him the business, it's not considered a mitzia, and that would be usher based on the concept on the machar. So yes, he didn't know about it. Very good, so he didn't know about it. First of all, now he does know about it, so he should back out. So even he didn't know about it, so it's very nice he didn't know about it. But even if he didn't know about it, and the other person agreed, and he went and closed on let's say a house. This happens very common. People are trying to buy houses in real estate. We get animal shilas all the time. People go and they close on the house, not knowing that someone else had already had a verbal contract with the other person. So Zakir Moshe, it's a machlokes, but Moshe Pascha is like this, and Pesach Tshuva, and it's really a Ranach. That even when it's b'sheigeg, you're still a rasha, because why you're a rasha? So undo it now. So it's very nice when you did it, when you started doing it, when you went into it, you might not have realized that you were doing the wrong thing. But now you know that someone else had a verbal commitment to do it. So the second you find out that someone else had the job, you're mechuyev to back off. And even if the guy says, well, I want to use you anyway, you shouldn't take the job. Because if you do take the job, then you consider it a rasha. By house is a hefsed. So you pay. Yeah, so you pay. He has to pay you. You're not going to have to take a loss. Yeah, he's going to have to pay you back whatever your losses were. You're not going to be good.
The guy hiring the star for the key for him to disclose his information.
What do you mean?
The guy already committed to someone for 800.
Yeah.
Someone's offering him 600. Obviously, this guy doesn't know.
Oh, so
the
this
person hiring. Like,
very good question. So there's two parts that now will handle the person who's hiring the photographer, what his achrayus is over here. So the first achrayus over here is, we'll introduce another concept of mechusar amona, and there's a shayla of Hatorah. So the first shayla we're still doing with the Isser Onei Hatorah. There's a halacha that if he's considered Rasha. So Pashas there should be an Isser of Lifnei Iver, because if you're making him into a Rasha and he can't be a Rasha without you, he has no ability to do this rishus without you, so there's an Isser of Lifnei Iver to go ahead and to give him the business, because then he's going to be over the Isser Onei Hatorah. There are those who say that the etzem rishus is only that he tried doing it and he wanted to do it, and maybe there's no lifnei iver in it. The b'chodesh tekashita pashas there is an issa of lifnei iver. But even if there wouldn't be an issa of lifnei iver, there's another halacha that you have to deal with. This is one of the most, I believe, important. You say this in Chayish Mishpat. There's a concept called mechusar amana. So we're all used to a transaction that happened. It has to be a kinyan in order to transfer a bilos. It's different than secular. Sometimes it doesn't need a kinyan. In halacha, we always need kinyan. In order for any transaction to happen, there has to be a kinyan to make it happen. Verbal is nothing, really, in halacha. But a verbal commitment is called a mechusar amana. When you give your word, you have to honor it. And if you don't honor it, you're very nissa. So when you told the person that I'm going to go ahead and hire you, and if I pay you $800, you're obligated. And if you don't follow up and you don't actually hire him, you violated the Isser of Mechusar Amana. You have an obligation to keep the word that you gave him, and this is across the board. You call up a doctor's office, you tell someone you're giving him a job, you tell someone you're giving him as long as it's even a matana, you're giving him a present, but it's a matana muetes, when it's a small present, where the person is saying das. Anytime there's a verbal commitment, and the person relied on you, and the person understood that you would honor your verbal commitment, and then you want to go ahead and back out on that, there's Isser called Mechusar Amana, and someone who does that is over Isser Mechusar Amana. So even by a guy. So there's a Mishpat Shalom brings, I forgot from who, that by a guy, he doesn't honor his word, so you don't have to honor your word. Halavai, it should still be true that the guy honor the words less than the Yidden, but Lamai said that's the halachically, that the halacha is that when someone, it has to be a two-sided deal. So if one person has an obligation to honor his word, and the other person doesn't have an obligation to honor his word, so the person who doesn't have, if that guy's not honoring his word, then you don't have an obligation to honor your word. But if it would be two Yidden, then the halacha would be to be a concept of b'chusar amana, be also to back out. There is a drop of an exception to this halacha. The Rama brings it something called trei tari, which is a big change. And the svara is, why am I obligated to keep my word? Kind of b'chusar amana, I gave you my word. But I gave you my word with a certain understanding. At that point, I thought I would have to pay $800 in order to get a photographer. Had I known originally that I could get someone for much cheaper, had I known originally I could have gotten someone for $600, then I wouldn't have agreed to pay you $800. So mechusar amana is different than a kinyan. If you make a kinyan, whatever the kinyan happened, the kinyan happened. Mechusar amana is only to have an obligation to keep my word. My word, the obligation is only to be kept in the same situation that I was in b'shas I gave it. I have an obligation to continue to keep my word. But only, and we look at it, had I known this information of later, then would I have given that commitment? If the answer is no, then according to Ramah, at least me'ikar dedina, you're allowed to be chayzer. Maybe you're shemayim to keep one's word even in such a case. But the poskim are mekel in such a case where a person, had he known that information of earlier, he wouldn't have given that commitment, then that commitment is not necessarily binding and is not over to Isser B'chusar Amana.
Right, let's say he's being overcharged, taking advantage of it. Let's say he's getting charged $1,000 instead of $300.
So if then they know he's not mechuyev to do it. But what's together? So I know halachically is a sixth over what the price is. The halacha I know when you're selling something, you're buying from someone. The deal has to be with the fairness of a deal is considered a sixth within the range. And even less than a sixth, if something has a set price, and you go even $1 above that, it's also. Now it's very hard to determine what the share is because you take a bottle of water over here. If you buy it in the local, it depends where you buy, right? If you buy it in the supermarket, you buy a case of 24 for a certain amount. You go to a hotel and you want to buy a bottle of water, it's $5. So it's very very hard to apply the halacha of Eino because the share is so different. There's so many factors that go into what's considered the actual price. The bottle of water could range from 50 cents to $5. So what's the actual price? What's that worth? But there are factors. There are things. The supermarket has one price. A hotel will have one price. A gas station will have a different price. There are prices, and it goes within neighborhoods also. The different neighborhoods. And you go to Manhattan, you're going to pay more than you pay in Lakewood. There are things that go in, but there are market factors that determine what price is. And assuming we could pin down what the price is, so you actually within up to a sixth more. If you charge a sixth more than that actual transaction is bottle, you have a right it's exactly a sixth difference, then you have a right to ask back for the money which you overcharged. If it's more than a sixth, then you have a right to actually mevatel. You could invalidate that whole transaction. But there's a halacha, I know that you could. What? Yes.
What happens if he's not hustler? If he's not hustler, because he gets another client anyways, then it's not considered. Well, the guy himself.
So you have a thing like this. The halacha of mechusar amana has nothing to do with whether or not he has another client or not. You have an obligation to Rebbeinu Shalom. You have to be an emes person. We have an obligation to speak truthfully and to act truthfully, an obligation to keep. Now, if you tell the person, do you mind, and the person doesn't mind because he has another client, obviously that wouldn't be an issue. But if he doesn't have someone else, so now, like this, even in this halacha, if he turns someone down, let's say he wanted to fire him, forget about the halacha b'chusar amana. So far I introduced the halacha b'chusar amana. Besides the issa b'chusar amana, the halacha is if you tell someone that you're going to give him a job, no kinyon's done, nothing further than that. And because you told him that you're hiring him, you told him this a night, and he didn't book someone else. So he turned down another client that he could have possibly had that night, and he turned them down because you told him that you're going to give him a job. So the halachas and first halacha and Shulchan Aruch and Siman Shilam Gimel, you have to pay him. You have to pay him for the loss of the job. Now people think I'm pull back out. What?
Full price?
Full price. It's garmi. So the machloikas, actually it's machloikas, I shouldn't say full price. It's a machloikas. The Sma learns that Medina de garmi. So whatever his loss was, had he gotten a different job for the full price, then you would have to pay the same price as he could have gotten in the open market. Someone it's not mamash din garmi, it's a din of davar ovid, which is that would be even higher than the amount that they lost. But it's Medina de Garmi, the Achronim asked that it's not really a loss of money, you only prevented him from making money, but the Maisa, that's the halacha. The halacha is that you have to pay him, Medina de Garmi, you're mechuyev to pay him the amount that had he gotten another job, he would have been okay and would have made money, and he turned down that job. Now, often what happens in these cases is hard to prove. How does he know he didn't have? He gets phone calls. He doesn't remember. Maybe someone called him, but he doesn't know that they actually would have taken him. He had an interest. They called that night. Are you booked for June 5th? He said, I looked at his calendar. Yeah, I'm booked. Does that mean for sure the person would have taken him? No. The guy could have asked what his price is, and they would have handled right. So it's very hard to actually mechayev this because the onus of proof is that he actually had a job. Sherav Bloy in Pesach Hoshen says in these types of cases he's supposed to make up shara because if it would have assumed that he would have found someone, and even if he can't prove halachically that he for sure would have gotten the job, but Lamaisi he turned down calls and he didn't speak to prospective clients because then if the nach is wrong, the kasha is answered. I'm saying for 20 years on a Bezdin, I'm saying for 20 years on Bezdin, it's not true. Not true. It's a false premise. It's not just not true. Finished. That's the short answer. But you want to know where pshara has a mokum. So a pshara has a mokum is in this type of case. It's already before in the shach like this. There's a suffix in mitzias. So now the reality is that had the person turned down someone, you have an obligation to pay him. You damaged him. You really hurt the person by doing it. Is there a concept of a raya that you can't prove it? It's true. But what happens if the truth happens? That you really turned away and you actually made him lose? Because he can't prove it means you're a tzaddik? It means that he can't, mon you in Bezdin is not going to be it. You go to Shemayim, you're going to get nenash from it. You're going to have a punishment. You, L'maisa, will mafsid the person money. So that's where Pshara has a mokum. There's a suffix in Metzias. We don't know what happened. Did he turn down someone? Did he turn down someone? Did he make him lose them? Did he lose? So there we make a Pshara. So Pshara has a mokum when there's a suffix in Metzias. Or there is another mokum of...
Why shouldn't you pay fully?
Why shouldn't you pay fully? Because you should pay fully. Because I'm There's a locha. Why do you have to pay fully? You don't know that you caused them a loss.
You don't know. It cost them.
So you might have, but that's halacha. When you're coming and
there's no lie over here. There's no way to prove it.
So then he loses. So then if he comes to Bezdin, he has to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt. Yeah. What happens if you have two Eidim and one of them they happen to be brothers? Moshe and Aaron come and Ameh that this person damaged someone else. You know what Bezdin's going to paskin? He's potter. That's halacha. Unless you prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's halacha. Halacha has an obligation that you have to be able to prove it. A proof means what's halachically accepted proof. And talking about pshara, people come into Bezdin, they don't want pshara. We get this all the time. They don't want pshara, they want din. Now, always it works against that person's bad. Because the more right you are, the more you should want pshara. Because the more right you are, and you just might be able to prove your point. But the more right you are, to give the best, the more authority to be able to help you and not to hurt you. So everyone, across the board, everyone who comes in and insists they don't want pshara, end up losing by that. Because if they don't want pshara, that means there's no authority, it's marinat vorim, it looks like it. You need edus beyond the shadow of a doubt. It almost never happens. If you're a teveya and you want to get money and you don't sign pshara, you're going to lose.
When you're a nitva and you don't want to.
If you're a nitva, then nitva it might be in his advantage to sign to do that. It might be in that, but very often the nitva's turn to teva. Usually it's counter tviyas and things end up happening, but yeah, a nitva is better off in the position because that's the halacha. The halacha, like the Chaznish said, I'm not a chorei for anything besides what the halacha is. The halacha is that you have to prove, in order to be moitzi mammon, you're going to have to prove it. You can't prove it, you're going to lose. There's a halacha of pshara. We could, if it looks and we see a certain way, then we have a halacha that we could possibly use the halachas of pshara to get you some money. But l'maisa, you're not going to be able to. What time do you continue? Okay.
So then, if you offer a service and another yiddo also offers a service, are you able to do sales to customers who use the other?
So the answer is yes, unless there is a concept that if someone did service, so it depends if you're trying to undo an existing deal that they have between them. For example, if they had an agreement that for the next 6 months, I'm going to use you. Even if it wasn't a binding agreement, but it was a verbal agreement that for the next 6 months that I'm using you. And you come and interfere, that's is'anim hapa b'charara. Because you're trying to undo a verbal agreement. But let's say there's no verbal agreement. This guy happens to be, that when he needs a service, he usually goes to that person. So here, there's no is'am hapa b'charara, because there's no agreement between them. There is, Rabbi Moshe does have a way to appreciate, well?
They have a contract.
They have a contract, you try to break a contract.
Month to month.
Huh? It's month to month. So the Divrei Goyim brings, the Divrei Goyim paskins, that if the end of the contract, the assumption is that it's going to renew, and you're trying to interfere, then there's isam hapachor as well. So it depends. Some situation, a person dafka didn't want to be bound, and didn't want to get stuck, and that's why he made it month to month. But like real estate, a guy's renting a house or renting a storefront, and someone else comes. Now the pasha says the guy's doing well, the guy's doing business, and he's going to continue. Someone else comes and offers the guy extra money because he wants to get this location. That would be pasha's isam ha'acharor, because the assumption was that it would have continued had someone not interfered. Sometimes people don't want to be locked in, so they specifically spoke out month to month because they want to be a free agent. They want to be able to go from this person to that person, and that's the prerogative of the person not to want himself locked down. Well.
Nobody wants to be locked down.
Depends. Some people want to be like that. If no one wants to be like that, there are plenty of people who are not looking to, today's business world, it changed a little. It used to be, the guy was happy with what he had. He was happy with his vendor. He used to keep his vendor. You're right. Today, there's much more of that moving around, and there's very much change. There's less loyalty to a person. Used to be a person serviced you. You forget that he should make money. You made money. Everyone was happy. Today, they're looking to squeeze everyone's looking to squeeze. That's today's aggressive business environment. It is what it is. But that you're right, that a certain amount that a lot of people do not want to get themselves locked down. But halachically, if the situation was that had he not interfered, he would have continued, and the assumption of the parties was that it would have continued unless something drastically changes, then it could be Issa Onim HaB'Charara. There's another concept called Marufia.
You don't know all that.
You don't know. So how do you do? Well, let me introduce the concept Marufia. Then we'll deal with what to do if you don't know what the situation is. The word Marufia is actually an Arabic word, but it's found in the Torah. According to some, it's an Arabic word. According to the Chavasiyah, I think it comes from Yaref Kamota L'Tchi. It means that it's constant. It means a person always, whenever he needs something, he comes to this person. He doesn't have anyone else. He doesn't have two vendors. This is his guy. He has a nursing home when he needs a pharmacy. He goes to this and this pharmacy. And nothing. Every time he needs someone, he goes only to this person. For someone to interfere with that, it could be considered it's asur. That is a minchas yitzchak that says that if there's goyim involved and the goyim are not bound by the issa marufia, so then we don't consider the connections as a strong connection, because if the goyim are going to come and they're going to offer their services, so why is the yid should be any worse? So if they didn't have an agreement and it's a Yiddish business where you're selling svarim, tzitzis, where there's no goyim in the business, then there's a shiloh for don din the marufia. When there's goyim involved in pashas, we're not don din the marufia. So what should you do if you don't know? The answer is that you can ask a question very innocently. There's a tshuva in the Chesed Eifed. I think he discusses this. He says that a guy was selling meat, whatever it was, butcher, and he wanted to call people to find out if they want to use his services. He says if you just call and ask them, are you looking for are you looking for someone to sell you something? And the guy answers yes, that means he wasn't connected to the other person. Because if a guy, if you start saying, oh, I have great prices, I can undo anyone, you start off like that, that's awesome. Like a headhunter just called me a few weeks ago, said, he goes over to people and says, I could get you double the amount you're earning now. Oh, are you looking for something? Well, the person's going to say he's looking for something. If you go over to them innocently and ask them, oh, by the way, Stam, are you happy with your thing? Do you want to obtain offers? Then if they're happy, they'll say no, they're happy where they are and they won't expand on it. If they're really looking, and it's true, a lot of people are looking to move up the ladder, and
but so if he knows that I'm going to give him, let's say, better service, he's going to
want it. But it's still, Aniyah B'Charora is that I'm not to take away something that someone else has. So it's true that the person might benefit because he's going to make more money, but it still doesn't change it's Aniyah B'Charora. Aniyah B'Charora is because I'm taking away from the person who his employer had a good employee, and now I'm undoing that relationship of employer-employee agreement. Doesn't make a difference. I'm offering him more, but am I offering his boss more? What am I doing? Even if it's a higher job, still it's Aniyah B'Charora. Aniyah B'Charora is that I'm undoing something. Who has something? The employer has something also. He has a good employee. Take away from the employer. So copy him. So if I ask the person, Stam, a general question, are you looking? So the employee is not bound to stay by the employer. So if he says that he's not looking, so then it's also. If he tells me, yeah, I'm always looking to look, I'm always looking around. So if he's looking around and he's not happy, some people are happy in the job. Not everyone's not happy. There's still some people out there, they're not looking, they're happy, they're satisfied with what they are. It's true, he might, but I have no right to undo it. Be'etzem is happy, Be'etzem is sitting over there, and I'm undoing that agreement, that's the Isser of Aniyah B'Charora.
How do you sell your service if you...
The answer is that usually people are not committed to someone yet. You can tell your service, there's nothing wrong. And you can ask them, are you looking? And if they tell you that they're looking, it's not meant to hurt the employee. An employee is not supposed to be locked. The Isser B'Charora is not the employee.
You're not going to get any sales if you go around, are you looking? No, okay,
Okay.
Make a sale, you got to make a sale.
You got to make a sale, but you got to also confine to what the halacha is. You got to confine to what the halacha is. And the halacha says that if someone has a relationship where he's satisfied in that relationship, and you're trying to undo it, there's an Isser of Aniyah B'Charora, and there might be an Isser of Marufia as well.
When does that help?
It only helps if there's no agreement between them, and it happens to be that whenever he has someone, he just goes to this person by chance, not because they agreed that they're going to get him. Then, once there's a contract, and once the guy's satisfied within his contract, and even if it's an employment contract, which basically it has an out in it that it's month to month, which min hastam a person's allowed to be chayzer after 30 days. Or even immediately, in New Jersey, by default, it's at will, employment is at will, so he's not bound to stay with that person, but he still agreed, and they have an agreement between them as to governing that relationship. So if I'm trying to undo and I'm trying to poach the employee from his employer, there'll be an Isser of Aniyah B'Charora.
This applies also with the new shul over the neighborhood, people trying to recruit.
I don't know if it's Mahat B'Charora, but rather one of the cases, interesting case, I mentioned the donuts before, about the guy who did that. So the reason why I told him is to find a different mitzvah. Rabbi has a fascinating tshuva niggas Moshe. It seemed like a Chassidish shtibel. There was a rebel over there, and he used to have fun with his mitzvah. I used to call them communists, all types of words. They had the big vikuach. There was a litvish element, it seems like, and they wanted to open up a shul, davening in Nusach Ashkenaz, and they said they didn't like the Yom Neroyim, they didn't like the tefillas, the Yom Neroyim of this rebel. So they wanted to open up their own shul. And Moshe said it's awesome. And Moshe said it's awesome. And he bought it, not on Aniyah B'Charora, the thing where we started off, a pasuk chiyusei legamri. He said if they're going to take away the mispalim, they're going to close down completely. And Moshe says an interesting svar over there. He says that there is halacha that you're allowed to compete with someone. Why? Because you have a right to make money, and I have a right to make money. Both of us have a right to make money. If you're opening up just for reasons for the nusach and for that's not a good enough reason to open up. If you want to make money, business is business, but not machen geld. You have a right to make money, I have a right to make money. If you're opening up because you enjoy this nusach and you think better, he says, "Dear it's vade yaser." He says, "Medaik in the Lashon the Gemara that."
No, he's saying
When you're closing him down completely, they were going to close down this person completely. You're allowed to open up another shul. You're allowed to open up it was a small. Obviously, the situation over there was that if they were going to open up this new thing, the other shul was going to close down. And Moshe Lamaisa comes down that tshuva. He says, "Also, it's a fascinating thing." We start with the Chazon Ish that you have to look at the lens of halacha. So Moshe says, handles it when they call them communists. Does that mean they're Rishoyim? Does it not Rishoyim? Because if you call them Rishoyim, then you're allowed to leave. You're not allowed to leave. Is communist mean Russia? Not mean Russia? But you have to appreciate what each case to analyze each prat of of the case in order to pass a shayla. But that case, Ramesh Lamaisa asked it. So some people ask, you're not allowed to pick someone up from the guy's waiting by a bus stop. You're not allowed to give him do a chesed and pick him up. The answer is that's probably mutter because you're allowed to do a chesed with someone. But to open up a whole nother shul and to take away and to close that person down over something. No, it's a loss of, without a loss of money. Pasach is legamri, it's called a loss of money. Ramosha says, Yori l'chayev chaveroi, and Ramosha is actually in that tshuva, there's machlokes Ramosha and the Chsam Sofer. That's I think machlokes. Ramosha teaches, what's called that I'm closing someone down completely? What's called I'm closing them down completely? Let's say the person had this one, so they order, I don't want to say the case. They order, they have a side business where that's not their main business, they have other businesses also. And you're closing down that business completely. You're going to open up a steady business, and that's going to close them down completely. Is that called Pasach Yusel Legamri? Do we look at the business or we look at the person? So Moshe in that Shuva says, Yor l'chayev chaverei, you have to look at this person, kefi mashu omid, kefi his family situation and what's the expectation of how much money he should have. And if you're taking away enough money that this person can't live on the standard of living that he was used to, the fact that's expected of such a person, and if he was making, I don't think he was making millions of dollars off the shtibel, but he was able to live a certain standard that was normal for that person of his stature to live that standard, and you take that away, it's called Pasach Yusel Legamri. There's a Tshuva to Chsam Sofer that he's discussing giving a chsherim on a sugar plant, something like that. And the Chsam Sofer says that it depends on each business by itself. You have to look at that business by itself. If you're taking away this type of business, he could have 17 businesses, doesn't make a difference. If you're taking away this business from him, he has a right and he earned and he was zeicha to have this business, and you're closing down this particular business, enough of a reason to shut him, to say that it's usher. And according to Chsam Sofer, it would be usher even if you're not shutting it, even if you're not making him into a poor person, but you're just making it, he can't make money off this particular business, that's enough to answer, and it's a pasach yusel legamri. Okay, let's go to the second question. We only did one question. Okay, few more minutes. Okay. So the second question was, you have a musician who hasn't stated his price. So what he does is he wants to reel in the person. I'm adding my haysafa to that, whoever asked the question. And he basically tells them, this is my price, $300 for an hour, whatever, for 3 hours, this is the price. And he's planning on charging him overtime. He's not disclosing to him that after 3 hours, he's going to start charging him overtime. Is it mutter for him to do that or not? So let's start with the shirish of the halacha. What happens when you hire a worker and you don't make up a price? What's the going rate? So here he thought he was being a Oibel Chacham. He thought he's telling him his first 3 hours, not telling him about overtime. He's going to zap him with a bill at the end and say, overtime, you have to pay me more. So how do we understand what happens when someone hires a worker and doesn't make up a price b'chlal? Huh? How many hours? He says 3 hours. He tells him, I hire you for 3 hours. The musician knows good and well that very often it goes overtime. The guy who's hiring him doesn't think so much that the simchas run overtime, so he figures he has him, and he's going to get him with overtime. He should ask. He should ask. That's we'll get to the Chavetz Chaim in a second. In Tzvas Tomim and in Avis Chesed speaks out that you're not allowed to hire any workers without making up everything clearly. But what's the halacha when you don't make up what you're going to pay? So be'etzem ikad din halacha is yada tachtona. The concept of yada tachtona means that the poil who's asking for money, if he doesn't explicitly say how much he wants to charge, and he's going to come at the end and say, I want to make this amount of money, so he always yada tachtona means he gets the lowest amount of what this type of job. Musicians have a range of the 300 to whatever they charge per hour, it's $200 to $300 an hour, so they won't be able to charge a penny more than $200. It's yada tachtona, because if he doesn't make up a price, and then he comes and says that, I want to charge you more. So you're coming to Motzei Mom, and you should have made up that if you wanted more than what the minimum price for this job is, you had to make up to how much you're willing to pay, and then you would have been entitled to get that money. If you don't make it up, you are not entitled to get more than that. Now it doesn't mean that if you walk into a doctor's office, or you call a plumber, and he doesn't make up a fee, then he gives you a bill, say, well, your fee is, you're charging $150 just for the service call. Well, I could find that handyman there on the block, he charges only $50 to come down. That's not true. And the reason is because when people have set fees, they don't have to speak it out. When they have a set fee, and everyone understands that there's a set fee per hour, and there's a service call, you call a plumber, you know that there's a service call price. So now to argue with him and say you're charging too much, you should have asked me what my service call price is. If sometimes he does like this and sometimes he does like that, like musicians, 4 hours, 3 hours, they sometimes bargain, they sometimes handle, then when you don't make it up, you're only entitled to a lower price. But if something is set in stone, there's a fee per every time you walk into the door. I charge X. When you go into a doctor's office, they have a set fee. They're not negotiating with you. Then we don't say the halacha is yaltach taina. But if it doesn't have a set fee, if it's something that sometimes is something in negotiation and sometimes the price fluctuates, then the halacha is if you don't explicitly say that you want to make more money, then the halacha is yaltach taina. Now the Chavetz Chaim, that's what's mavur in the K'tzos, and mavur in Shulchan Aruch like this. The Chavetz Chaim in Avos Chesed and Tzvas Tamim bemoans people who, when they hire workers, they don't make up an exact price. Because he says you want to figure out what the price later. It's the efshar later what the Mendy Medina is. It's almost impossible to figure out what the going rate is, what's the fear rate. And he says, only is Ganev, Gazlan, the Kavish Chayasacha. It turns out you're for sure going to rip someone off. It happens all the time. A guy does work for you, and he starts screaming at him, he's charging too much, charging too little. You know what the Mendy Medina is. You know exactly. You went and made the study to figure out. And the Chavetz Chaim says it's very often impossible to figure out what the Mendy Medina is. And the reason is because someone who's a more experienced plumber has one price. Someone who's less experienced has a different price. He has a fleet. He stands behind it. He doesn't stand behind it. He's a better, worse. It's impossible to figure out. The same way we mentioned by Noah, it's hard to pin down exactly what a price is. It's true. It's very hard to figure out because there's so many factors that go into a price. So it's almost impossible to figure it out. So you might think that the person's overcharging you, but in reality he's not overcharging you. And if it turns out that you pay him 1 pruta less than what he's worth, he's over 6 lavim. There's the over Geneva, Oishik, and there's the halacha b'yamitit and schar, you have to pay a worker on time. There's at least 5 or 6 isurim associated with that iser. So the one you think you're oibechacham and you think you're going to bargain, you don't make up a price. The Chavetz Chaim says you're oil to be a ganev, gazlan, v'kovish chayasacher if you don't make up a price. The Chavetz Chaim says it's incumbent, and he says tamid chachamim b'nei Torah sure have that achrayas. They for sure have to make up before, because if you try to bargain later, and the Chavetz Chaim got over there, I think gives some good business advice. He says usually you have more bargaining power before than afterwards, than to make up what the price is. But the Chavetz Chaim says that if you don't make up a price and then you go into something and then you're owed to be a ganav. So in this case, where you're going to hire a musician, so really the first thing is they should never have gotten to the shayla. The musician should have spoken out what his price is. The Baal Beis is incumbent on him to ask what, like you mentioned, what do you charge for overtime? What's the prices? What's that? Because if he doesn't, and then he's going to try to work it out later, and the Chavetz Chaim says that even if they work it out, but there's bad feelings, and they come to a verbal agreement, so still you're ganav. Chavetz Chaim says a chiddush over there that if you coerce someone to be moichel, and even if he says it bepeh, that it's okay, but he's doing it only because he feels he has no choice. What is he going to fight with the person? He just finished chassan, it's late at night, people around, he's going to look bad, the customers, he's not going to get a job the next time. He's not going to fight with you. Does that mean that you're not a ganav? Absolutely not. You're a ganav. You stole from him. He was entitled to get what he paid, what he worked for, and you paid him a penny less, a pruta less than what he was entitled to pay. Comes out that you stole from him. You're a ganav, and the over 6 lavim in Hatorah for what you thought to be an oibechacham that you're able to bargain. So again, it's something that's incumbent on a person that when it comes to hiring a worker, he has to speak out clearly what his price is, and the Baal Beis should make up very clearly and should anticipate. There might be overtime, there might be a job, a contractor, it's going to run into overtime. All the steps, what to do. And this way, a person will be able to anticipate it, and he won't come to be over nearly the Yisurim.
This was quiet.